I think it's an understatement to say that the last few months have been a terrible time for the speckled flying fox as a species. And now, according to researchers, over those 2 days in November, the record-breaking heat wave wiped out almost 1/3 of the nation's entire spectacled flying fox population. Now, that's 23,000 in total. In one camp in Edmonton, almost the whole camp was wiped out. That's around 11,000 animals, while hundreds more perished at the camp in the Cairns CBD. Now, following this, a few weeks ago, the federal government upgraded the classification of the species from vulnerable to endangered. And now the Cairns Regional Council has announced plans to attempt to disperse the colony in the Cairns CBD library trees. Martin Cohen is from the Flying Fox Advisory Committee, which provides recommendations to the council on issues relating to the management of flying foxes, particularly in urban settings. And he joins us now. Dr. Cohen, good morning. Welcome to ABC
Good morning,
Far North. Now, the Advisory Committee is meant to use its expertise and local knowledge to provide feedback to council on its adopted management strategy. What's your feedback on their plan to disperse the CBD colony?
That's a really good question. I mean, we can say as much as we can in these committee meetings, but and you can read the minutes on the website, but basically our hands are tied. Now, everyone on that Flying Fox Advisory Committee, including myself, the chair, I was an invited chair, and also you're looking at the community members that we've voted in as well, have all said that we do not support this dispersal plan. I repeat, Kia, we do not support this dispersal plan. I can't speak for Dr. Dave Westcott at CSIRO. He's a scientist. I know he's very concerned about the upgrading. He fought hard to get that changed to endangered, and by the time the federal government sat on it for 3 years, it's probably gone from endangered to critically endangered. And guess what the next step is after that one? Of course, it's extinct, and we're watching a species become extinct before our eyes. And we have an opportunity to do something about it here in Cairns.
Now, one of the reasons why they say they want to disperse the colony, Martin Cohen, is for the benefit of the bats themselves. Yes. Because of this recent incident, which led to as many deaths as we did have. They're talking about trying to get them out of the CBD to try and save them going forward.
Exactly.
Do you think that's not the case?
I don't think that's the case at all. I think, well, things have changed quite a bit in the last year, I suppose, Kia. Now, last year we were talking about it. We're getting a lot of deaths and orphan bats, because of the construction that we were seeing, surrounding that CBD camp. And we thought, well, maybe we need to get them out of here. And there was that sort of thought. But then when we had the heat wave, the heat event with 23,000, across North Queensland for this species, and we see that the population is just, plummeting. And we realised that the heat event affected populations other than the one at CBD. The CBD, lost 156 bats compared to 11,500 down at Edmonton.
And why is that?
Well, we think that we don't really know, but we think it's probably better conditions. It's also a camp that can be well looked after, well maintained, lots of people there to get them as soon as they fall from the trees from heat exhaustion, cool them down. So we've got some management practices in. The wildlife carers are just, busting their guts to try and help these species, and they can do that in the CBD. So because of this, we realise now that probably the CBD is a safer place. So it's a knee-jerk reaction to try and shift them on at this stage. In fact, I firmly believe, and I think there'll be a whole lot of other people that believe, that trying to shift them with no plan, we don't know where they're going to go. You want a couple of thousand spectacled flying foxes in your backyard, this is what may happen when they start dispersing.
Now, the council does say, though, the plan is to try and get them to move down to Edmonton. There is the release cage.
This is rubbish. This is a load of rubbish. I mean, there is no way. When we decided to put this release enclosure in, we wanted it
just
to
set the scene for that. So this is the orphan pups that came out of that incident that occurred in November. They are in a release cage in Edmonton. The hope is, the council says, that the adult flying foxes will head down there because the pups are there.
Exactly. And what we wanted to do is, the original idea was to put the release cage in the swamp, in the Cairns swamp, close to the CBD. And we thought, well, that may be a natural progression. We've seen this happen before at other release enclosures, a natural progression that the species in the centre may end up going to that. But they've put it at Edmonton. So the CBD bats are not going to go to Edmonton, okay? It is too far. And we said to them right from the start, but we were thwarted by a whole range of things, including the airport, who didn't want us to set up a release enclosure and encourage a camp somewhere, within the airport's facility. And of course, you've got to look at that and think, well, if one bat brings a jet down with 300 people in it, then obviously, you've got to take due care and caution about that. But the link between the release enclosure, great to have a release enclosure, don't get me wrong. The carers are just ecstatic about it. This is fantastic. But don't get any link between that CBD camp and that Edmonton camp, because it's just the distance is too far. They're not going to say, oh, let's go down to Edmonton. And also the camps that were at Edmonton were quite healthy up until the heat event, and Edmonton area lost the most bats to the heat event. So, and I wanted to point out, some people are saying, but we've got flying foxes everywhere in Queensland and through Australia. This is our species, Kia. This is the North Queensland species, the spectacled flying fox. It doesn't live in Brisbane. It doesn't live in Melbourne. It doesn't live, in Rockhampton. It's just, the same habitat or the same region as the cassowary. It's now the same conservation classification as a cassowary.
Interesting to see how that perception is different.
Exactly. The people, cassowaries, they'll bend over backwards to try and save cassowaries, and yet we've got a species that's still maligned, by some of the politicians in this part of the world.
Now, what about the balance there in the CBD? A lot of development taking place, the big hotel being built across the road from it as well. Is it possible to find some sort of middle ground here at all?
Well, I think at the moment we just have to see what happens when these developments are finished. These towers are pretty close to finish. They're up. I would like to, we've got to see what this population reacts to once those towers are up. And once the construction activity's finished, I'm hoping that they'll settle down, and those trees around the library will still be birthing trees for this species, and so on. And we'll get, thousands of tourists every year coming up to look at them and praise how wonderful, it is to have this in your city. Trying to disperse them without a plan, we don't know where they're going to go, and it's never worked here. Have
dispersals worked anywhere else?
No, it's never been a success. Melbourne and Sydney tried it. They still have to actively try and stop animals from going back to the Botanic Gardens. They got them to move, but they didn't get them to move where they wanted them to go. It cost millions, up to $3 million, and ongoing costs, even years and years down the track, is at least $50,000 per year.
So would you say it's a waste of time and money?
A waste of ratepayers' money. I'm a ratepayer here in this town. I don't want my money going for this useless activity.
Dr. Martin Cohen, he's from the Flying Fox Advisory Committee that advises the Cairns Regional Council, who apparently are not taking the advice of the Advisory Committee. Is that a fair enough thing to say,
Yeah, that's
Martin
true.
Cohen?
And I think they're using us as a bit of a pawn to lobby the state government to get all this approved, and I'm really unhappy about that.
Do they have approvals?
Not yet, but they're trying to get them, and we're talking to the state government and saying the community consultation has not happened, and it should happen before they even think about doing something like this.
These are very strong words, Dr. Cohen. How do you feel taking part in this interview will affect the relationship between the committee and the council?
Well, I'm being frustrated by the committee. The educational benefits we get from the committee, I've always used to satisfy myself about why I'm still doing this. But when they come out and use us and say, yeah, all the committee are pretty happy about it, and we've consulted with them, and they start misrepresenting my opinion and the others on the committee, then I'm unhappy, and I'm happy to speak out.
Martin Cohen, thank you for your time this morning.
Pleasure, Kev.
Obviously, this is the beginning of a conversation which will continue.
I'm sure.